comes and says, hey, I have this stock, it's been doing great for the last couple of years, and the stock is at record highs. Oh wow, I gotta buy some of that. Dumb money buys when the economy is doing well, and it's based on emotion. So when the economy is doing well, most people are financially doing well. We're doing, the economy is thriving. And so that's when most dumb money buys, okay, when the economy is doing well. The problem is dumb money they don't know that they're dumb money. There's an old saying, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so when I say dumb money, I don't want you guys to go home and say, geez, Pastor Bill brought this guy in here and he just talked about us, called us dumb. Okay? We're all dumb. There are certain things I'm dumb about, okay? This is a part of the education process. When you leave here, I want you to leave here with a smart money mentality, right? Where you've saw the light, okay? So now you're going to buy low and you're going to sell high, okay? And so when things are high, that's when you save. That's when you save money. And then when markets correct, you profit from that market correction. Have you ever heard people say, geez, man, I wish I would have had some money when Microsoft came out. I wish I would have had money when Starbucks started, okay? If you save, people that save have money when they need it. But when if you're used to spending everything you get, when those opportunities present themselves, then you can't take advantage of it. And that's biblical. That's biblical. Back in biblical times, in Egypt, there were the 7 years of famine, and then there were 7 years of prosperity. Okay? And during the time of prosperity, what would they do? They store it up. They would store 1/5 of whatever the percentage they store up. They didn't just spend everything. They didn't just use everything because it was a period of prosperity. Okay? But it's something interesting about human psychology, Sister LaDonna. Human psychology says when things are going great, they're going to continue to go great, right? It's never going to stop being good, okay? And conversely, human psychology tells us when things are going poorly, oh Lord, it's never going to get better. It's always going to be bad. But the reality is trouble don't last always, right? I'm not supposed to be preaching.
That's all right.
Trouble. Can I get an amen? Trouble don't last always, right? The reality is it's a cycle. We call it, I was a business econ major at Pepperdine University, okay? And this cycle, we refer to it as the business cycle, okay? In the hood, we call it the business cycle. The business cycle has 3 phases. And you may want to write this down. There's 3 phases to a business cycle. Okay? And this is an intelligent group. I'm sure you guys know this already. 3 cycles. This is Econ 101. The first phase of the business cycle is called prosperity. It's called prosperity. Things are going great. Who can give me a prosperity phase of recent years? Who can tell me about a prosperity phase that we've gone through? The housing bubble started circa 2001, and that bad boy burst in 08 or so, 07, 08. Started to decline. It's really peaked about 06, and then it just really busted. In 08, we had the financial crisis. Everything crashed, okay? Real estate, stock market, bond market. It was a financial disaster of epic proportion, okay? But that bubble started in 2001. That was a prosperity cycle. Prior to that, we had the dot-com. You guys may be a little too young to remember that. That was in the 1990s. That was the late 90s. And that went through about 2001, you know, when we had the terrorist attacks and so forth, okay? And so those were periods of prosperity. During prosperity, and we'll talk a little bit about the one you brought up, Mike, the housing bubble. Everybody was balling, okay? Everybody was buying a house. Everybody was driving Hummers and Range Rovers. Mike Gardner owned 2 houses, okay? Because all you have to do is state your income and state your assets, sign on the dotted line, and you can own a house. I'm telling you, everybody was balling. That was a period of prosperity. But not a whole lot of people were saving money, okay? And a lot of people were buying at the height of the market. They were making bad financial decisions because our monetary policies were so loose, and that's a seminar for another time. All that was by design. We were really pawns in that whole scheme, okay? We're pawns in it, okay? But that was a period of prosperity. So in the business cycle, you have periods of prosperity. Prosperity is always followed, guys, by contraction. But again, what did I say earlier? Human psychology, when things are going well, we think it's going to continue to go well. But it's followed by contraction. If contraction gets really bad, if it's minor contraction and it's only 10%, what I mean by contraction is that the stock market or the economy starts to slow down, starts to contract, okay? Prosperity is at the peak, and then it's going to be followed by contraction. If we have at least a 10% correction in the market, when I say the market, I'm referring to the S&P. How many of you guys have heard that? S&P, Dow Jones, okay? Make a note of this. If you follow the market, don't follow the Dow. That's the one that everybody wants to look at. But the Dow Jones Industrial Average is comprised of 30 industrial companies here in the U.S. So it's a very small sampling. It's a very small sampling, Henry, of our economy here in the U.S. It's only 30 companies. The other index that is a truer measurement of how our economy is doing is the S&P. That stands for Standard & Poor's. The S&P 500. That's a truer measurement for us, okay? Because it is comprised of 500 companies and 10 sectors. Those 10 sectors, you're probably saying, geez, what's 10 sectors? Who can give me an example of a sector? Energy.
Yeah, I was going to say energy.
Oil. Energy and oil would be in the same sector. That would actually fall under, that would probably fall under energy. It is a commodity as well.
Manufacturing?
Okay.
Manufacturing?
Manufacturing is a sector. So we got energy as a sector. We got manufacturing as a sector.
Consumables?
How about utilities?
Consumables?
Consumer discretionaries, okay? Consumer discretionary companies, like, what's discretionary? Companies that you don't have to have, but we want. Those are the things we want to buy. Discretionaries, like your Walmarts, your Nordstroms, and those companies would be considered discretionary.
Are those textile companies?
Pardon?
Textile companies?
That would be under materials. So that's another sector, materials. Transportation. Food would be consumer staples, very good. Consumer staples is a sector. Technology, very good. Technology is a sector, okay? Companies like Microsoft, IBM, which is International Business Machines, and companies like that would fall under the technology sector. Cisco Systems, okay? How about healthcare? We need that, right? Those are all sectors of the S&P, okay? So it's 500 companies and it's 10 sectors. Effective 17 rather, they're going to add an 11th sector to the S&P, and that 11th sector will be real estate. They're going to add real estate to the S&P. Okay? So can you see how the S&P, do you see how that's a more a broader measurement of how our economy is doing? Because it's 500 companies in 10 sectors, okay? And so that's what you want to really look at. So when we talk about correction, that second phase of the business cycle being correction, okay, we have prosperity followed by correction, okay? That correction, if we have at least a 10% decline, rather, in the S&P, that is, I'm saying correction, but I meant contraction. If we have a 10% decline in the S&P, that's considered a correction. If the contraction gets really bad, then we go into what's called a bear market. How many have heard that term, bear market? So you're going to sound really smart when you talk to your friends and say, don't get too alarmed. We just had a correction. The market only dropped 10%. Okay? We buy on the dips. Smart money buys on the dips. Dumb money sells after a 10% correction. I got to get out of here. I'm going to lose everything. Smart money says, oh wow, 10% correction. And smart investors always buy on the dips. They buy during the periods of correction. Okay? And so 10% correction you want to buy. Now if the market drops 20%, that's a whole nother story. Now we're in what's called a bear market. Bear markets are defined as a market appreciation or market correction of 20% or more. 20 to 25% is a bear market. So you're going to sound really intelligent when you're talking to your friends. They say, oh, well, this is a bear market. And you say, what are you talking about? We've only had 10%, 15% correction. We're not in bear market territory until we hit 20, 25%. They're going to be like, whoa, Kevin, this dude is smart. Okay? So that's bear market territory. Now, if contraction gets really bad, we go into what? Right, my man, and right. I wish I had candy. I would give you guys candy. When I do seminars, I pass out candy a lot. Okay? It keeps people really happy. Yeah. And it's better for them than other stuff. Okay? Well, actually, we should probably pass out fruit. Okay? But if things get really bad, we go into recession. If that period of decline gets bad, recession is defined as a correction of 40 to 45 to 40 to 50% is considered a recession. If we have a market decline in the S&P between 40 and 50%, we're in a recession. Now, technically, recession is also defined as 3/4 of negative GDP growth. Okay? So Kevin was right in 2008. That was a recession. So again, we have prosperity. And what's the next phase? Contraction. If we only have 10% contraction, we just have what? Correction. If it's 20 to 25%, it's a bear market. If it's 40 to 50, if it's over 50, then what will we call it?
Depression.
We're depressed. Somebody said the second coming. My boy said depression. That's when depression sets in. As if being down 40 to 50 is not depressing enough. When it goes beyond 50% contraction, now we're in a depression. And we technically haven't had that since 1929. We had a 1929 stock market crash. Yes. Now, what preceded the 1929 stock market crash? My man, the Roaring '20s. Okay, you're too young to know about that. You like your history, huh? Okay, you're sharp dresser too, so you know all about that. The Roaring '20s. I mean, you're talking about the height of the Industrial Revolution. That women, you owe the roaring 20s to fashion. All you women that like to dress nice, if it wasn't for the roaring 20s, you'd still be running around looking pitiful. Right? Because colors and fashion and all that stuff came into play. And as guys too, right, Bill? Roaring 20s is when it all happened. Companies like General Motors from 1920 to 1929, before the stock market crash, averaged 50% annual rate of return. Yeah. Height of the Industrial Revolution, televisions, and all that stuff. That happened during one of the most periods of prosperity in our history. That was followed by one of the most dramatic and sustained periods of, what's the next phase?
Contraction.
Contraction in our history. And what do we call that phase, that period? The Great Depression. The Great Depression. So prosperity, then contraction, and then we go into expansion. So in expansion, it's also known as recovery. It's a recovery cycle. That's when the economy is recovering from the contraction. It's recovering from that contraction phase. Okay? How many of you have ever had a major injury? Okay? How many have broke a leg or had surgery or something? Is recovery, can you tell me, does recovery feel good?
No.
Okay? If you've ever had any issues, if you ever had problems with alcohol or drugs, or if you've ever been injured, recovery is a bear. Recovery doesn't feel like you're recovering. Okay? And that's why people, again, that human psychology, when things go bad, we think they're going to stay bad. And so when the market has fully contracted, we got all this stuff in our mind. Recovery it's tough. Okay? And so the markets, unfortunately, just don't go all the way up and then down. But they go like this. And then they drop like this. And then we think it's going to keep on dropping. But really it's going to plateau and start going back up like this. It may do this for a tad, though. It may go like this before it starts going up. And when it's going like this, no real growth, we call that a sideways market. But recovery is never pleasant experience, because you're going to feel worse sometimes. You know, when you've gone through a surgery, I have a good friend, she just broke her tibia and a fibula out playing tag with her son. And I said, you're over 40 years old, you can't be running around playing tag. But she broke both her tibia and her fibula. And she's going through the recovery process. And there are days when it feels worse than it did when she first broke it. And maybe not quite that bad, but she has good days and she has bad days. But you know what? She's going to look up, and in 3 months, she's going to be on pace. And she's going to look up in 6 months, she's going to have 90% use of that limb. She'll be able to bear 90% of the weight there. And so recovery takes time. During recovery is the time to buy. We want to start buying. We don't want to catch a falling knife. We don't want to buy when the markets first start to go through contraction, bear market. We want to wait until it bottoms, or buy as close to the bottom as possible. Okay? And we don't know that until it starts to go back up. But usually the average bear market only lasts 12 to 15 months. But it feels like an eternity when you're investing. Okay? Now that Great Depression recession we had in 2008, the markets recovered about 24 months. Okay, got back to where they were before the markets failed. If you were in a 401k and you left your money there and didn't panic and move, in 2 years later, you had fully recovered. And if you kept investing in the 401k during the down cycle, You recovered even faster because you were buying low during that period. How many had 401ks during that time? Okay. How many kept your 401k, didn't move it? Very good. Okay. And so you recovered a lot faster that way. So during recovery, then that's the time, especially early recovery, is when you want to start buying. And then from recovery, where do you think we go? Back to prosperity. It repeats itself. So prosperity, contraction, and there are degrees of contraction, and then we go through recovery, and then we go back into prosperity. Where do you guys think we are now? Technically, this is supposed to be recovery, but the cycles have been so skewed because of all the government intervention, all the manipulation that's taken place. Okay? Quantitative easing. I mean, how many of you guys have heard of that? QE1, QE2, QE infinity. Quantitative easing, where the government is actually going in and buying bonds and purchasing bonds to keep things afloat. Okay? So all this stuff has been done with smoke and mirrors and stuff like that, because our economy was at the cusp of collapse. And so we've had a lot of manipulation, so it's really murky right now. We're supposed to be, and I can see why you're confused, because we're supposed to be in prosperity, like this young man. Who said prosperity? Okay. We should be in prosperity, technically. And it would be classified by economists as prosperity. But the market still feels like they haven't fully recovered yet. Okay? Because how do we measure where the economy is? Based on our pocketbook, based on our standard of living, based on how we're doing at home. Okay? That's how we measure how this. Somebody said, hey, it doesn't feel too prosperous to me right now. We don't see very many Hummers. Okay? We don't see very many Range Rovers and so forth. And I live in Orange County. We don't see Hummers and the excursions rolling around. We see electric, we see Teslas, we see Priuses, we see a lot of Priuses. What? Exactly. We see Chevy Volks, stuff that folk can plug up, okay? Because it's a whole different prosperity. This is a different prosperity cycle. It still feels like recovery. You're right, because there's still a lot of pain, still high unemployment. And they say the unemployment rate is under 10%. Well, if you're African American, okay, the unemployment rate is triple that. Especially if you're an African American male, good Lord, it's probably 35%. And if you are Latino or Latina, the same thing. Or if you're a high school educated Caucasian, this is what you're getting. Welcome to our world. Okay? And that's why so many people are upset politically. We won't go there. We won't go there, Pastor. They want to change because it's affecting everybody. Used to be you graduate from high school, you go and get a job, and you can do well. You can go work for the post office, you can do a trade, you can work for the government, you can work for General Motors. My dad worked 40 years for General Motors, retired, and is living well. And you could do that and be successful. But now, this is not the same type of prosperity cycle that we're accustomed to. It isn't, okay? And so, but technically we are in prosperity. The next cycle is going to be contraction. Now unfortunately I don't have my crystal ball is broken, so I can't tell you when that's going to happen, but we suspect, our analysts at Wells Fargo Advisors, and by the way, I'm not with Wells Fargo Bank. Okay, I should have cleared that up before I got started here. We were bought by the bank in 2009. I'm a part of the old Prudential Securities, okay? Wells Fargo Bank purchased Wachovia Securities in 2009. The bank is in a mess right now. There's a lot of scandalous stuff that has gone on. In my industry, in the securities industry, our regulation is so much more stringent. We're regulated by the SEC. Who can tell me what that stands for? Securities and Exchange Commission. FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. and now the DOL, the Department of Labor. Okay? And so in my industry, you set up false accounts for clients and stuff like that, you go to jail. You don't get the bailout and get a big bonus. The last guy that did it, Bernie Madoff, you guys know what happened. Heard of that guy, right? So you know if they put him in jail, my black butt is definitely going to be jail. I said, you think I can get away with that stuff? I'm just adding a little levity, okay? But really, in our industry, you're going to go to jail. You're going to go to jail in our industry. So I'm not Wells Fargo Bank. We are owned by the bank. And you know what's interesting, Wells Fargo Bank did such a great job through the financial crisis. They came out smelling like a rose. In fact, they're one of Warren Buffett's #1 holding. He loves Wells Fargo stock. It's done great. By the way, it's a good time to maybe look at buying some Wells Fargo stock because it's low. It's dropped a bit. Okay, it's 18% down for the year. Last year, I was buying Walmart for clients. Walmart was down 30–35%. I'm calling clients and says, you know, we need to buy some Walmart. Okay? Nordstrom's dropped almost 50%. We've been buying Nordstrom's this year. Okay, we're buying low. Okay, but again, we're not Wells Fargo Bank. We're Wells Fargo Advisors. So I wanted to take some time to kind of go over some of the fundamentals. Are you guys getting anything out of this? Okay. Before I went through this sheet really, the handout that we're going to go through takes maybe 15 minutes. And then we're going to have some Q&A and that type of thing. And then we'll throw in some biblical, some scriptures that relate to investing and so forth. I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar with a lot of those scriptures. And then we'll tie it all in. Because I got till 11, right? And if that clock is right, it's 5 to 10. Okay? All right. So this is what we're going to do next. Any questions? Because I want this to be interactive. I want you to ask questions. Okay? Give me some. We got prosperity, contraction, recovery.
You were going to say your not prediction.
Oh, our analysts. And see, that's what happens when you get past a certain age. Okay, I won't say what that age is. You could probably guess. Okay. Our analysts at Wells Fargo Advisors feel that at best we are in store for a bear market. At best. Best case scenario, we're going to have a bear market, and they see that happening sometime 2017, maybe 2018 at the latest. Right. So at best, we're overdue for a bear market. Typically, after prosperity, when we go into recovery, during recovery, we typically, after about 5 years of recovery, we typically have a bear market. And that is, bear market again is what? 20 to 25% correction. Well, we haven't had that. Since 2008 financial crisis, from 2009, and if things hold up this year, which we expect that they will, we will have had 8 years of positive market returns. Yes?
Do you base your years off January to December,
Yes.
or do you want off fiscal years?
January to December. Okay. Yep. And so this will mark the, yes, all the manipulation. They're artificially low.
Yes.
And that's all a part of the tools. And Pastor Bill was talking last night about negative interest rates. Japan did it, and they went into deflation. And it's bad news when you start doing negative interest rates. Negative interest rates is when they charge you to put your money in the bank. I got a deal for you. You give me your money, and I'm going to charge you for it. Okay? Where I'm from, they have a word for that. Okay? And that's negative interest rates. Okay, that's what's going to happen. We don't know if that's going to happen. Our Fed is pretty sophisticated, and they're saying that that won't happen. They're starting to increase interest rates right now. The Fed is pretty, Yellen is pretty dovish, okay? But she's becoming more hawkish. Trust me, if they could have raised interest rates, they would have. And they know that by raising interest rates too soon, I mean, look at it. Japan, you've heard the saying, China owns us, right, Bill? Pastor Bill? Bishop. That's what happens when you're friends with somebody, you just call them by their name. He's not hung up about all that stuff. Yeah. But Japan, what they mean by China owning us is China owns so much. What do they mean by China owning the U.S.? You're a smart dude. Yeah, they own our bonds, okay? Who can tell me what a bond is? It's basically a promissory note, right? A bond, if you buy a bond, what are you doing? Man, this guy. You're lending money. You're actually lending money to the bond issuer. Corporations raise money in two ways, okay? They can issue stocks, okay? When they issue stocks, you buy the stock as an investor. What position do you have when you buy stock? You get paid a dividend. You're what? You own it. Okay? You own it. When you're a stock purchaser and buy stock in the company, you're an owner in the company. Okay? You're in an owner position. We call it equity. That's another name for stock, is buying equities. So if you hear the name, if you hear the word equities and hear stock and equities, they're interchangeable. Thank you. Because they're one and the same. They're one and the same. You're buying equities. You have an equity position. So as a stock holder, you're an owner in that corporation, and as an owner, you are entitled to a percentage of the profits. Why? Because you own things, okay? And so you get your percentage in the form of a dividend. The shareholders decide each year, the board decides each year what level of dividend will be paid out to its shareholders. Now, dividends aren't guaranteed, but you better bet the Warren Buffetts of the world, the Soroses of the world, they are not going to own these stocks unless they're getting dividends. Okay? And it behooves the corporations to pay you a dividend so they don't have to pay taxes on all of that. So it's a win-win type of a deal. So when you buy a stock, you have ownership. Okay? And that's what we want to have more of, guys. We want to be owners. And you're going to profit from the dividends. And if you're not using those dividends, you can elect for those dividends to be reinvested and buy more shares for you in that stock. And I'll give you some examples of that in a second. Bonds, on the other hand, when you buy a bond, you are a lender. Okay? So two ways corporations raise money. They issue stock, they issue bonds. So now when you give them, when you buy a bond, you're loaning the corporation money, they owe you.
We talked about that last night.
Okay? And so, what do you have, what position gives you the greatest potential for prosperity and growth? Stock. Mm-hmm. Which position gives you the greatest amount of security if the company goes bankrupt? Bonds. Because they have to pay their creditors first. Okay? But there's some risk associated with bonds. There's a risk that y'all know when folk borrow money from you, they may not pay you back. Okay? And so that's the risk. Okay? How many of you guys have kids? Okay? Bonds are rated based on credit worthiness. If you are out there and you shop in bond market and the bond is going to pay you 8%, especially in this market, 7-8%, you say, wow, that's a good deal, right? What's probably wrong with that bond? If they're gonna pay you 8%, the 10-year treasury right now is crediting about 2%, or it's about 1.75. And someone's gonna give you, say, 5% for a bond right now. Credit rating is not good, okay? So when you buy bonds, you gotta look at the rating, the credit rating of the bond issuer, okay?